everybody, it's Annaleah, and I am going to show you today how to paint a really cute little snowman. And so I have this one as an 8.5 by 11 traceable. So if you have a small canvas, you can trace it onto a regular 11 by 17 or 11 by 16 canvas. And that is the right size for that one. Or we're going to put this one on a big tall canvas today. So I have this 10 by 20 large canvas, and we're going to paint him on there today. So if you want to follow along, I will put the traceable into the video links, and so you can pull that up and have that available. Otherwise, I will also show you how to freehand draw out this little guy today. Now, some other supplies or materials that you're going to need your canvas, and then you're also going to need some type of palette. So I'm using a styrofoam plate. You could also use a piece of plastic. You could use a piece of wax paper. Anything you have that won't absorb that paint will work for a paint palette. You're also going to need some paper towels, a pencil so that you can sketch out your design, or if you have trace paper, then you can trace your design. So I have some carbon paper here. You can get this at most hobby or craft stores, and you can also purchase it through Amazon online. I sell it in big packs that you can get there as well. And then you're going to need some type of paintbrush. So these packs are 5 paintbrushes, and they were about $3 from Michael's, but any type of paintbrush will work. The ones that you're going to need specifically today is a wash brush, so some type of flat square brush. This one is a 1/4 inch. You could also do a 1/2 inch larger one, but whatever size you have will work. And then you're going to want some type of round brush as a detail brush. So this is what we're going to use to add all of our lines and our little details and things on there. So those 2 brushes you're going to need. If you don't have those, you could use an angle brush, and that would work just as well. Whatever you have, you can make that work for you. And then I'm going to be using some craft paints today just to show you how to do this. This is a set that I got again from Michael's. There's 12 different colors that came in this set for $5. So you do not necessarily need super expensive paints to be able to do really pretty great paintings. But if you're using craft paint like this, they tend to be a little bit runnier or more liquid to them, and also not to be as opaque. So when you're using craft paints, sometimes you have to do 2 or 3 layers of a color to get it as thick or as vibrant as you might want it if you were to buy more expensive paints. So that's kind of the big difference with those, and I'll show you how to use those for this design. So we're going to get started. We're going to start with drawing out or sketching out the design today rather than tracing it. I like using traceables just because these are paint classes and the emphasis is on the painting piece, not on drawing and stressing yourself out about getting the right shape. But I do want to show you how to do that so that you can sketch this out if you need to. So this particular design, I'm going to stick him, let's see if I can get him under the camera there so you can see him. So this particular design has a long, thin body and then really skinny, long legs, and then a pretty small head, and then the skinny tree that's there next to it. And so to sketch that out on here, I'm going to decide how big I want my body to be. And that's where I'm going to start. So we're going to start with the body, and I'm going to decide how big I want the body to be on this canvas. And because this is a 10 by 20 canvas, I know that it's about 20 inches long, and I want the body to take up about half of that canvas. So I'm going to do approximately a 10-inch body, and I want it to be a little bit lower, so kind of in the bottom 2/3 of the canvas, so that there's room up here for his head and his hat. So I'm going to just kind of sketch in some lines to start with. So I'm going to put in a line where kind of the bottom of the body is going to be. That's where my legs are going to start. And then I'm going to come up from that. I'm going to put the top of his body right about there. And I know this is kind of hard to see with my camera being so bright, so I will make this darker once I sketch him in there. So I have one line here, one line there, and then his head is going to be quite a bit smaller. So I'm going to put another little line where I want his head to end, and then above that is going to be my hat. So that'll go there. And so by just kind of making those lines, I can visually see where that's going to be on my canvas and that it is approximately where I want it. So from there, I'm going to take this line in the middle and I'm going to turn this into the oval for his body. So I'm going to just take that and put a curved line at the bottom. And I'm making him kind of oval shaped, almost pear shaped. So it's going to be thinner or skinnier up at the top than it is at the bottom. So curve this down and around on both sides. And I want to leave enough space that I can get that Christmas tree in there on one side and that I can put an arm on the other side. So I can see I didn't really leave a lot of space there, so my tree is going to kind of hug the side there. If I wanted to, I could erase that line and come back in and maybe make it a little bit less oval. So what's nice about pencil is that it lets you kind of erase as many times as you need to, so you can go back in and redefine those lines and get it the shape that you want it. But yours doesn't have to be oval. You could make yours a square snowman or a big circular snowman, whatever fits your personality and however it works best for you. So some people have a really hard time drawing circles, so an oval works better for them. And some people not having that oval be the perfect shape kind of stresses them out too. So whatever works best for you. Alright, so there's my oval. It's going to be rounded here at the bottom. And again, it's got that little line up there at the top. And I'm going to go over this with a black Sharpie so that you can really see the shape of this even more. So up here at the top, I'm going to put two little straight lines for my scarf. And then again, I'm going to curve that so that it's parallel to the bottom of my snowman. And so that's going to be my scarf. And I'm going to put a little square in there where the scarf is going to come down. And I want the scarf to come down about halfway into his body. So that, and it's going to have a couple of little lines at the bottom there. And then we need a head for this guy. So we want his head to be smaller than his body, but we still want it to be somewhat proportionate. So his body's about 10 inches. I'm going to do his head about 2 inches. And I'm just making kind of a C shape on either side of that. So I've got the C shape on both sides to kind of set that head in place. And then up at the top here, I'm going to make a curved line that's going to go across the top, and that's going to be the bottom of my hat. So it's going to extend out on both sides of his head. And then again, I'm going to put a straight line here, kind of a diagonal line there, so it kind of curves in. And then decide how thick you want that brim of that hat to be. And curve that one across. And then from there, we're going to build his hat up. And this particular hat is kind of a crinkled hat, so it's not perfectly straight and even. If you wanted a perfectly straight and even hat, you could put two straight lines and a line across the top. But I'm going to make this one kind of come in and out like it's been sat on a couple of times or it's a little bit older. So I'm going to decide first how tall I want this hat to be. So again, just like we did before, I'm going to kind of put a curved line up here at the top where the top of that hat is going to be. And then I'm just going to put little C shapes or kind of V shapes coming down so that it curves down on one side and kind of crinkles or zigzags on the other. So one little curve, two little curves, the third one there, four, and you can decide kind of how many sections you want this hat to have. So I'm going to come in and do maybe 5 or 6 so that he's got some real personality to this hat. Here's one side, and then we want these to kind of match up as they go across. So I'm going to just kind of sketch in a couple of lines coming across here so that I know that that other side should kind of connect to those pieces. So there you go. There's my kind of crazy. It kind of looks like a little bit of a beehive effect going on there. And so to get rid of that beehive, I'm going to take just 1 or 2 of these and I'm going to straighten them out. And so that way, not all of them are perfectly curved. Some of them have a little bit more of an angle, and that will get rid of that kind of beehive effect for me on that side, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So kind of curve that first one, and then I need one here that is straight so that it kind of has areas that it balloons out and then areas where it cuts back in on us. There we go. So now I got some that are curved and some that are a little bit more angled. And that's going to help it to have some character and some personality, but also to look like a hat and not like a beehive. Okay, so I got my hat, I got my body of my snowman, and then the last thing on this guy is his legs. And so his legs are super thin, straight lines. And so if you have a ruler, you could use a ruler and actually put those in there with that ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you could use a piece of paper. So I could use the edge of this paper to sketch out my lines as well. And so I'm going to put this down here at the bottom. I'm just going to give him 2 really skinny, straight little legs. In the middle, I'm going to set this down here. And draw a straight line. And you can decide how thick you want these to be. They can be really thin little stork legs, or you could have really fat legs on your snowman too. So again, it's totally up to your personality and what you want for this little guy. And then same with feet. I did not put feet on this snowman, but if you wanted feet, you could totally go in and put some little shoes on the bottom or little round circles for feet down there. So you can come in and just kind of give him some little maybe black shoes. So he's got something down there at the bottom. Okay, and then the rest of it is just all of the little details. So we're going to go in and we're going to kind of space out where those eyes are going to be. Kind of just put little circles in there for where that's going to be. And then the carrot nose is rounded on the base. And then if you decide where you want that point to go, you can kind of curve him up and make that carrot. And then if you do a little C shape for the 2 sides of his mouth, and then you can decide if he's a smiling snowman, or I made mine kind of have a wiggly mouth there. So you can add that mouth in. And then buttons. You could do square buttons, you could do circular buttons. I did little curlicues. So you just kind of start in the center and swirl out to get that curly Q effect. And so I'm going to do 4 of those. There's my little buttons. And then some arms. And so this guy has just little stick arms coming off of him. So kind of decide where on his body, kind of the upper 2/3 of the body itself is where those arms are going to come out of. And this one we're going to put up here and tip in his hat. So I'm going to put that hand, and then I'm going to curve that around and attach that arm. And then on the other side, he's holding a Christmas tree. So again, your ruler could come in handy to make that straight line, or you could use the side of a piece of paper if you wanted to do that as well. And I'm just going to decide the star is a little bit taller than my snowman's head. So I'm going to kind of decide where that star is going to be. And then from the bottom of that star, I'm going to just draw another straight line. So this straight line is going to go all the way down to the bottom of my canvas. And there's my straight line. And then again, I just did 2 little dots for where that star is going to be. And for the star, you're going to put your point at the top and make a point. And then straight out or slightly angled down from there is going to be your 2 sides. Pull those back in. We're going to pull back in both of the sides of that star and then kick it back out for the base. So those are going to go out, and then decide on where your center point is going to be. So this one's going to be slightly to the left. And then I can draw my lines to connect that to my 2 parts of my star. So there's my star, and then my tree is going to connect to that. And then from there, I'm just going to put a couple of lines out showing where that Christmas tree is going to have a couple of little needles there at the top that kind of form the cone. And then this is a total Charlie Brown Christmas tree. So he's going to have some bare spots, and then coming down from that, have another section of pine needles. A couple of them there. And you could decide how long these are and how wide they are. And that is going to decide the personality of your Christmas tree. So is it a big, thick, bushy Christmas tree? Or is it a really scrawny, sad little tree? So you can kind of decide based on how wide you make all of these lines and how many of them you add to your tree. So there's kind of 2 little sections of mine. I'm going to skip down and put another one here. And these little boughs kind of remind me of arrows. So if you look, they're smaller and thinner at the top, and then they're thicker and wider at the bottom. And so they kind of look like arrows pointing up the Christmas tree. And that'll give you kind of that evergreen effect of having needles on a tree. So I'm just going to work my way all the way down on this tree and add, again, as many of those as you want. You could have lots of them, or you could make it a really sparse tree. Totally up to you. So I'm kind of evenly spacing mine out here, which on a normal design you wouldn't want kind of that uniformity. You would want it to have kind of randomness to those branches to make it look more realistic. But because this one is such a simple design, it kind of adds to it to have those evenly spaced, or have them kind of equal size and distance on this particular tree. But you could play with it and make it totally your own and have individual branches or whatever you wanted coming off of this tree. I'm just going to put one more kind of right below the end of my snowman. So this is going to be that last one at the bottom. There you go. And then I'm going to leave the rest of that tree bare towards the bottom. So you could also add personality to this by going in and adding in like Christmas balls on there or some lights if you wanted to. So you could totally deck this tree out and make it your own. And then where that arm is, I'm going to come across to this opposite side. And in the same place on the opposite side, I'm going to make a big circular arm. And this arm is going to come around my tree and down. So it's kind of hugging that Christmas tree, holding on to it there. And you want to make sure that you make it approximately the same length as that other arm is. So I curved mine just a little bit too much. So I'm going to tuck him in a little bit tighter so that that hand comes to the center of my little body there. So I'm going to erase that other one. So even though it's a really silly, whimsical design, you still want it to be somewhat proportionate so that those arms look like they're the same length. But if you're making a tree or a snowman out in your yard, you might have two totally different size tree branches. So if it's not perfectly even, that's okay. Okay, so there is how to draw our super cute tall snowman. And now we're going to paint him. So we're going to start with the background color for this one. And again, you're going to want your paintbrushes and a cup of water. And I'm going to angle this camera so that you guys can see this canvas as I'm working on it. Let's see. Put this in a good spot for you. Yeah. Okay. So as we're painting this, we're going to start with the background. And I'm using green and a little bit of white and a little bit of brown to kind of get like an olive green color. So I have green here. I'm going to put out a spot of that. And because I want this to be kind of an olive green, I'm going to mix my brown right into that green. So I'm going to put a spot of brown there right next to my green. So it makes it easy for me to access. And then I'm going to put a spot of white out so that when I want to lighten it up and get the lighter effect around his body, I can do that as well. And I'm going to start with my big square brush. So I have a big square brush here. And we're going to just go all the way around the snowman and paint the background. And so I'm going to mix some of this brown and the green. And so when you're mixing colors, you want to make sure that you keep your brush flat. So I'm going to grab some of this green and kind of pull it out here and then flip my brush over back and forth so it loads it onto both sides. I'm going to grab a little bit of that brown and do the same thing. So flip that brush back and forth so that it blends that color and mixes that color on my plate. But I'm not using all of my color. And the reason that you don't want to use all of your color is that you can always add more to it. So if I want to make it lighter or I want to make it darker, I can still pick up more green or I can pick up more brown and add it to that color rather than mixing it all together like when you're making cookies. And then I would have to pour more paint out to be able to fix that color if I wanted it lighter or darker. So now I'm mixing just a little bit of my white in with that color. And that's going to give me this pretty olive green here. So you can see that. It's kind of a light green with a little bit of brown mixed into it. And we're going to put this all the way around our snowman. So I'm going to kind of start by edging my snowman. So I'm just going to come all the way around him with that color. And you could do this with the edge of your brush by turning it and doing it with just the edge. Or you could also turn it the flat direction and do a big, thick, fat line around there. But I just want to kind of have where that white space is going to be. And that's going to protect me from taking the green into my snowman as I go. So I'm going to edge this other side as well. And again, I'm using the edge of my brush and kind of angling it as I go to get that nice thin straight line. Or you could use the flat side of the brush and pull down the same way and get that fat line. And one of the cool things about painting this or sketching this out with the pencil ahead of time is that all of those pencil lines, you can go right over the top of them. It's not going to hurt those lines. You're still going to see them through this thin craft paint, but it will kind of pull that graphite a little bit. And so you'll get some of that gray that mixes in with your green, and it actually will help this background because we want kind of that dirty green look to this. If you decide to paint it a different color, you could do a blue background, and so you would mix blue and white, and then that gray would kind of pull in there and you'd end up with like a blue-gray. You could also do like a yellow if you wanted to and mix yellow and white together, and the graphite would mix into that and give you kind of a dirty yellow effect. And so that's okay. You could use any color. You could go really crazy and do like a purple background if you wanted to. So totally decide to make this snowman your own and to customize it the way that you want it so that it matches your personality or matches the decor that you have in your house. So again, I'm just kind of edging all the way around my white sections so that I know where this snowman is. And then I'm even going to go around the hat. The hat's going to be black, and so it's not really going to matter. The green could totally go all the way over the top of the black hat, and it's not going to ruin it any. But I'm going to edge it all the way around there just to show you how to do that. And as I'm going, I'm just mixing more paint. So as I run out, I just grab a little bit more green, a little bit more brown, and a little bit more white, and I'm just mixing more. And what that is also going to do is it means that my color on this canvas is not going to be uniform. So it's not going to necessarily be the same green down here that it is up at the top. And that's okay. That's going to add to that mottled effect. So don't stress if you're mixing blue and white and the second time that you mix it, it's a little bit darker or it's got a little bit more white in it. That's not going to hurt anything. Once you have it all outlined, then you can kind of start to blend those colors together. And so the way that you're going to do that is you're going to pick up some of that paint and you're just going to come in and you're going to do X's all the way across this canvas. So if you're the younger generation, that would be the hashtag. If you're older than the age of 30, then that would be the pound sign, or you could just do X's. So if you just do a couple of lines down and then a couple of lines across, or X as you go, either way, you want to just kind of make sure that you're using different brush strokes so that it's blending all of this color together rather than having perfectly straight lines and trying to get a nice even set of lines going across. So by doing this hash line, it's going to make that color kind of move around on your canvas and blend those colors together. And you're going to end up with shadows and things in there. So some areas where it's a little bit lighter, some areas where it's a little bit darker as you go. And so it's just going to help you fill in that canvas and not be stressed about all of the colors not matching or seeing those brush strokes or lines in there. And so it's a really simple design for that to kind of help you out. I mixed a little bit more white and green in it that time. And so that section is showing up a little bit lighter. And so I'm just going to kind of X that same color into what I've already painted so that there's little bits of that paint up into the rest of that canvas. And then the next time I'm going to mix a little bit more green and a little bit more brown into that same color on my plate, so that as I add it, this next part, it pulls it back to being a little bit darker. So again, you're not going for uniform color, you're just kind of mixing it as you go. I'm going to help you with that. Now, when you get to the edge, you do want to paint the edge and the tops and the bottoms of your canvas as well. So make sure that when you get to that edge, you can just kind of carry that color all the way around. And that's going to make it a finished canvas so that you can hang it on the wall right away, rather than having to put a frame around it or see that unfinished white edge. And so lots of people don't paint the edges, and then they'll go and they'll buy a frame or make a frame and finish it off in a different way. For me, because it's a wrapped canvas, that's one of the great things about having the canvas wrap all the way around the side, is that you can paint right up until that edge, and that helps finish the canvas for you. And so I'm going to, even on the bottom, add that little bit of color there so that it finishes my canvas off. So there's one side down, and I'm going to continue working up on that side, or you could switch over and do the bottom half of the opposite side. Whatever, I'm not doing it in any specific order. Just kind of following what's easiest to access for me. So I am going to post this on Facebook. So if you have questions or you get stuck in the process, feel free to drop questions in the comments. And I'm more than happy to go back and answer those, or I would love to see you post your finished examples, and if you tag us in them, I would love to see your version of this one when you're done with it. That would be super awesome. So you can tag Easy as DIY in there, or drop it in the comments on the video, and put your picture in there so that we can see your version of it. So hopefully this gives you something fun to do over the Thanksgiving break or at home with your family. You know, lots of people are in quarantine or are socially distancing this time of year because of all of the stuff going on. So hopefully this gives you something fun and artsy to do, even if you're at home. Again, I'm carrying that color all the way around the sides of my canvas. So I'm painting the bottom there as we go. Okay. If there's other classes that you guys would like to see videos of and like to see digitally, I have not been doing our digital classes like I did in March, just because we have in-person classes in Soldotna. But if there's videos that you'd like to see, I am more than happy to make some additional videos and post those up of designs that you are interested in. So feel free to check out our Facebook events page and see the classes that I have coming up. And when I'm making the examples for any of those, it's pretty easy to record a video of me putting it together and to post those. So if you are staying home and not able to paint, grab some supplies. You can order all the stuff that I just showed you was from Michael's, but if you don't want to order online, you can go to Walmart and they have all of these same materials. Where else? Joann Fabric carries a ton of art supplies and canvases. Michael's if you're in Anchorage or you want to order it online. But even Amazon will ship you art supplies and send them right to your door. So if you are trying to avoid going out and being out in public, or you're somewhere where they don't have those stores readily available, so any smaller town in Alaska or across the country that doesn't have a Walmart, that's okay. You can totally order them online. I like Michael's just because Michael's gives you coupons if you sign up for their rewards program. You can get coupons and get materials and supplies and things at pretty good discounts. So that makes it cheaper than even buying things through Amazon. So if you look, you can kind of compare the prices at both places and get the best deal. Again, this set that I got of 12 paints, so these are 2 flowing ounces each, and there's 12 paints here. This was $5 from Michael's, and it was free shipping, so pretty good deal. And craft paint is a great option to start with, and practice the techniques and kind of learn what you're doing. And then if it's something that you really enjoy and you start painting quite a bit more, then you can kind of step up to the next level. So paints come in different levels of use. So it starts with craft level, and then it goes to what they call basic or student paints. And the student paints just have a little bit more pigmentation to them, a little bit more viscosity so that they go on a little bit smoother, but they're just a step up from these basic craft paints. And then from there you move to the professional level paints. And so this 2-ounce bottle of paint doesn't have very much pigment in it at all. The same size of a professional level could probably paint 10 or 15 canvases because there's so much pigment in it that you use a lot less of the actual paint itself. And so as you continue to hone your craft and get better at painting, then you can kind of use all of the craft brand ones up, and then when you need more, if you really are enjoying it, buy the next level and get the student level the next time, and then play with that, and then pick one color that's important to you and try that in a professional level and see how that works. So one of the other things is that the professional level paints don't come in as many different varieties of colors, because they expect that once you get to those professional paints, you're mixing your own colors or mixing your own shades. And so in the craft brand, you'll get really crazy colors. Like they'll give you one that is called ocean blue or black licorice black. And that's something that the craft paints do so that you buy all of the different shades and don't have to mix them. Whereas if you were buying a professional level paint, you would buy maybe a crimson and then mix it to get 3 or 4 different shades of red that you might use in your design. So something to keep in mind as you guys are deciding which paints to buy. Craft paint will do almost anything that you need it to. It might just take more layers or a little bit different technique, but the professional paints and the student body paints definitely make it a little bit easier for you to layer things or to put white over another color. So you can decide based on what you're doing and how often you're painting, how much you want to invest on those materials. Okay, so I'm working my way around. I got kind of 3/4 of it You can see there's a lighter area here and a darker area there. So again, as you're working, it does not have to be an even color. We're kind of going for that messy blended look. And I'm painting right over the top of my Christmas tree because that's going to have a darker green over it anyway. I am going to leave the star white so that, especially with the craft paints like we were just talking about, whites and yellows do not cover as well in craft paint as if you had that professional brand paint. So I'm going to leave that white so that it turns out being bright white and bright yellow. If you're using a student body paint or a professional level paint, you could paint this whole thing green and come back in with white and still have it turn out white or yellow. So that's one of the downsides of craft paint, is that, again, even the white just doesn't have as much coverage. So I'm going to go around this little star, pull up and pull over to fill in around him. So you guys will have to let me know in the comments, is it more helpful for you to see me paint this whole thing? So like right now I just went and did all of that green, or if I started that and then skipped ahead to me being done with the green so that it was a shorter video, would that be more useful for you? So I can't imagine sitting and listening to my voice for an hour is the most entertainment you'll have in your evening. So if you guys like seeing all of the steps, I can do these full length videos, but I can also put it on double speed so it speeds through and does it faster. Or I can skip ahead and just kind of show you what the process or the technique looks like and then skip. So you don't have to watch me paint all of it. So if you let me know in the comments which version you like the best, I can totally do that. There's how long it took us to do all the greens. So that was, what, 30 minutes? Something like that. So, yeah. So we have all of our background in. Again, you could go back and add a second layer in here. So if there's areas that are darker and you want them a little bit lighter, you could just go back and hash line in some lighter color back over that. Or if you have areas that are really light, you could go back in with some more of the dark and you can kind of play with that. So that's one of the neat things, is acrylic paint lets you just continue to layer and layer and layer. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to just mix a whole bunch of white into our green, and I'm picking up just a little bit of water also. I don't know if you can see my water glass there, but I'm just picking up little bits of water and mixing it in with that white. And so it's making this really light green. And closer around the body of this snowman, I'm going to add that green in there. And so I'll show you on this version here, you can see right next to his body, there's just a lighter kind of snow effect or halo. Not the snowman itself, but just around him. And so I'm going to just come in and I'm going to hash in that lighter color right along my body there. And it's, again, it's okay if it goes into the legs or into the body a little bit, because our white paint will go over it. It might just take a little bit more work. So I'm going to come in and do one side really messy and the other side I'm going to outline first so you can see what that would look like. But I'm just taking that light color and I'm hashing that in and then blending it out so that it's not a huge stark line between where it's light and where it comes out here to the rest of that background that we just did. So you can see on this side, it's kind of a stark line, right? And so I'm just going to kind of scrub or brush at that line. And just like we did on the rest of the background, I'm kind of Xing into that so that it pulls little bits of that paint out into the rest of my background. So I just want it to be a little bit lighter around his body. So you can see the legs, I just added that lightness there. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. So you can see it's kind of got a dark halo around it right now. So we're going to change that and make it a little lighter right around the body. So come in straight here, and then kind of edging that, and then just hashing that lighter color all the way around. And if you add too much water, and it starts to get a little bit drippy on you, use your paper towel and dry your brush off, and then you can go back over this. So you don't want enough water on there that it drips or that it starts to pull the paint off. So if you put too much water on, it'll actually pull the paint, like I just did right there. It'll pull the paint that you already put on your canvas off. And so you want to avoid that by just using little tiny bits of water. You don't want to ruin that drying effect that's already taken place on your canvas and have it move the paint around too much. If it's a little bit, that's okay. But if you start to get kind of bald areas or bald patches, let it dry and then go back in with that white and green over it once it's all the way dry. So if you have a spot that's kind of being tricky for you, let it dry and then go in and mess with it, and that will help you so that you don't get that bald spot. And again, I'm just kind of Xing this color in and pulling it out into the rest of this canvas so that there's just little bits of that white kind of coming through other areas. And it's kind of the snow effect. So it should be giving you just little bits of white. Like maybe there's a snowstorm going on and there's little flurries blowing around this snowman. Oh no, I just realized that I had paused my video